The Vanishing Route 191 case. A Shadow Prophet Eye. Original Paranormal Investigation Prologue. The Missing Deputy. October 17th, 2019, 11:43 p.m. Route 191, New Mexico. The call came in at 11:37 p.m. Sheriff's Dispatch in Luna County received a frantic 911 call from a trucker named Marcus Briggs. His voice was shaking, barely coherent. "There's a kid out here, middle of nowhere, mile marker 11. He's just standing there. Something's wrong with him. His eyes. Jesus Christ, something's wrong with his eyes. Please hurry, please." The line went dead before the operator could get more information. Deputy Aaron Keller took the call. He was 43 years old, a decorated officer with 18 years on the force. He had seen accidents, domestic violence, drug busts, the occasional body in the desert. He had never once called for backup unnecessarily. His dashcam activated automatically as he started his patrol car, recording everything with perfect clarity in infrared night vision. The timestamp read 23:41:07. Keller drove 12 miles down Route 191, a desolate stretch of two-lane highway that cut through the emptiest part of the New Mexico desert. No towns, no gas stations, no light pollution, just sand, scrub brush, and darkness so absolute it felt alive. His radio crackled. "Unit 7, what's your status?" "Approaching mile marker 191, Keller replied. "No sign of the trucker, no sign of the kid. Visibility is—" He stopped mid-sentence. His headlights illuminated something in the middle of the road. A child. Boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a dirty white t-shirt and jeans. Barefoot. Standing perfectly still in the center of the road, facing the patrol car. Not moving, not flinching in the headlight glare. Just standing there. Keller's dashcam captured him putting the car in park and stepping out, his hand instinctively resting on his service weapon. "Dispatch, I've got a visual on the minor, approaching now." He walked slowly toward the child, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Hey kid, are you okay? Where are your parents?" The child didn't respond. Keller got closer, his boots crunching on the gravel shoulder. 20 feet away. 15. 10. That's when Keller's flashlight beam hit the child's face, and Keller stopped walking. The dashcam microphone picked up his voice, barely a whisper. "That's not a child." The figure's eyes were completely black. No whites, no irises, no pupils, just solid, empty black, like holes punched through reality. And then the child smiled. Too wide, too many teeth. A smile that stretched beyond what human anatomy allowed. Keller stumbled backward, reaching for his radio. "Dispatch, I need." The transmission cut to static. Every light on his patrol car, headlights, light bar, interior lights, flickered violently, then died. The dashcam continued recording in infrared. What it captured defied explanation. The child moved toward Keller, but the movement was wrong. He didn't walk. He glided, his feet never quite touching the ground, and the motion looked stuttered, as if reality was skipping frames like a corrupted video file. Keller drew his weapon, his training overriding his terror. "Stop! Don't come any closer." The child tilted his head at an impossible angle, neck bending like rubber, and then he spoke. But the voice that came out wasn't a child's voice. It was many voices, dozens of them, all speaking in perfect unison, overlapping, creating a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We mean you no harm, Deputy Keller. We only want to go home." Keller's flashlight fell from his hand. "How do you know my name?" The child's smile widened further, splitting his face. "We know all your names. We've been listening for so long." The dashcam footage showed Keller backing toward his car, his weapon still raised. But then something appeared behind him. A shadow. Not Keller's shadow. Something else. Something tall and elongated, with limbs too long and a head that seemed to fold in on itself. The shadow moved independently, sliding across the ground like oil. Keller must have sensed it because he spun around, his flashlight beam sweeping across the empty desert. Nothing there. But the shadow remained, cast by a source that didn't exist. The last words Keller spoke were captured clearly. "What are you?" The child's response came in that terrible chorus of voices. "We are what happens when shadows forget their bodies." Then the dashcam experienced a catastrophic glitch. The screen filled with static and geometric distortions, the audio collapsing into a deafening screech that would later damage the equipment of anyone who listened to it at full volume. When the footage cleared 3 seconds later, Keller was gone. The The child was gone. Only the patrol car remained, engine running, driver's door open, radio hissing with dead air. Search and rescue teams arrived 40 minutes later. They found Keller's service weapon on the ground, fully loaded. They found his flashlight still on, pointing at nothing. They found his radio, torn from his shoulder, the microphone cord snapped. But they never found Aaron Keller. The FBI classified the incident immediately. The dashcam footage was confiscated. The case file was sealed under national security protocols. The official explanation listed as ongoing investigation into potential abduction. But 3 officers who viewed the footage before it was seized all reported the same thing. In the final frame, before the glitch consumed the recording, you could see something in the background, a stone staircase, rising from the desert sand, leading nowhere. Chapter 1: The Woman Who Shouldn't Have Survived. June 14th, 2022, 9:47 p.m. Route 191, New Mexico. Laura Jensen was 21 years old when she made the worst decision of her life. She was driving from Albuquerque to Phoenix to surprise her boyfriend for his birthday. She should have taken I-10, the main highway. It was longer but safer, well lit, with rest stops every 30 miles. But her GPS offered a shortcut, Route 191. Saves 47 minutes, the automated voice promised. Laura took the shortcut. By 9:30 p.m., she was deep in the desert, miles from anything resembling civilization. The road was empty. No other cars. No lights, except her headlights cutting through the darkness. That's when her engine started making a horrible grinding sound. Laura knew nothing about cars. She was an art student, not a mechanic. But even she knew the sound was bad. She managed to pull onto the shoulder before the engine died completely. Silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, oppressive. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the blood rushing in your ears. Laura checked her phone. No signal. Of course not. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, trying to restart the engine, trying to get even a single bar of reception. Nothing worked. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Flat, featureless, hostile. That's when she saw the figure. At first, it was just a dark shape in the distance, backlit by the faint glow of the moon. Laura squinted, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Someone was walking toward her, down the center of the road, small, child-sized. Relief washed over her. A kid meant there must be a house nearby, a ranch, somewhere with adults and working phones. She rolled down her window and called out, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" The figure didn't respond, just kept walking. Closer, closer. That's when Laura noticed something wrong with the way it moved. The child's steps were smooth, almost gliding, but there was something off about the motion, like watching a video with missing frames. One moment the child would be 50 feet away, the next moment 40, but Laura didn't see the transition. Her brain couldn't process the movement. It was as if the child was teleporting forward in small increments. Laura's relief evaporated, replaced by a cold dread that settled in her stomach like a stone. The child entered the glow of her headlights. Boy, maybe 9 years old. Dirty white t-shirt, torn jeans, barefoot. His skin was pale, almost gray, covered in a fine layer of desert dust. But his eyes, oh God, his eyes. They were completely black, not dark brown or shadowed, black, solid black, like staring into 2 holes punched through his skull into an empty void beyond. Laura's hand moved to the door lock button. She pressed it. The sound of the locks engaging seemed impossibly loud in the silence. The child stopped 10 feet from her car. He tilted his head, studying her with those awful empty eyes, and then he smiled. It was the most wrong thing Laura had ever seen. The smile was too wide, stretching beyond where a human smile should end, revealing too many teeth, small, sharp teeth that looked filed to points. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost polite, but there was something underneath it, something that made Laura's skin crawl. "My name is Michael. My car broke down. Can I come in? I'm cold." But it wasn't cold. The desert night was still warm, probably 70 degrees. And something else bothered Laura. Something her conscious mind hadn't quite processed yet. The child's lips didn't quite match the words, like a badly dubbed foreign film. I can't," Laura stammered. "I'm sorry, my phone doesn't have service. I can't call anyone." "Please," the child interrupted. His smile never wavered. I need to come inside. I can't be out here when they come. When who comes? The child's head tilted further, now at an angle that should have been anatomically impossible. The ones who cast us out, the ones who took our shadows. Please, miss, I just need to come inside. Laura shook her head, her breath coming faster now. I'm sorry, I can't. The child took a step closer. Laura's heart hammered against her ribs. You have to invite me, the child said. That's the rule. But if you don't, he raised his hand and slowly placed his palm against the driver's side window. The glass fogged around his fingers, frost spreading in intricate patterns despite the warm night. But here's what made Laura's blood freeze. She heard tapping, loud, rhythmic tapping on the glass, but the child's fingers weren't moving. The sound was coming from somewhere else, behind her, from the back window, from the roof, from underneath the car. Tap, 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 tap. Different rhythms, different speeds, as if dozens of invisible hands were knocking on her car from all sides. Laura screamed and fumbled for her phone. She dialed 911, her fingers shaking so badly she almost dropped the device. The call connected, but not to dispatch. Static filled her ear, thick and wet-sounding, and underneath the static, voices, distant, layered, wrong. Then one voice broke through clearly, a man's voice, strained, terrified, speaking in a desperate whisper, "Don't open the door. Whatever you do, don't let them in. They're not children. They're not human. They're, Jesus Christ, they're everywhere. They're in the walls. They're in the static. Don't open the..." The call dropped. Laura looked at her phone screen. The display showed call duration. But she had heard at least 30 seconds of the man's voice. Time had glitched. She looked back at the window. The child was gone. Relief surged through her. Thump! Something heavy landed on the roof of her car. The metal groaned under the weight. Laura tilted her head up, her eyes wide with terror. Directly above her, through the thin metal and upholstery, she heard breathing. Slow, deliberate, wet, and then scratching. Fingernails, no, something harder, sharper, dragging across the roof, metal shrieking in protest. Laura closed her eyes and did the only thing she could think of. She prayed. She prayed harder than she ever had in her life, the words tumbling out in a desperate stream of consciousness, begging God or the universe or anything listening to make it stop, to make whatever was on her roof go away, to let her survive this nightmare. The scratching stopped. The breathing stopped. Silence returned. Laura sat there, tears streaming down her face, too terrified to move, too terrified to open her eyes. She didn't know how long she sat like that. Minutes, hours, time had lost all meaning. Eventually, she heard a sound that made her sob with relief. Sirens. Flashing lights illuminated the inside of her car, red and blue, the most beautiful colors she had ever seen. She opened her eyes. A state trooper was pulling up behind her, his spotlight aimed at her vehicle. Laura threw open the door and stumbled out, nearly collapsing into the trooper's arms. "Help me," she gasped. There was a child, his eyes, something on my roof. The trooper caught her, steadied her. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Are you on any medications?" "No, you have to believe me. There was..." She turned to point at her car roof. Her words died in her throat. The roof was pristine, unmarked, no scratches, no dents, no evidence that anything had been there. The trooper examined her car with his flashlight, checking all the windows, the doors, the roof. Nothing. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me. We'll get your car towed. You've had a traumatic experience." "I'm not crazy." Laura screamed. Something was here. There was a child with black eyes and, "Ma'am, please calm down. You're in shock. Let's get you somewhere safe." Laura let the trooper guide her to his patrol car. As they drove away, she looked back at her abandoned vehicle, and standing beside it, just at the edge of the headlight glow, she saw him. The child, watching her leave, his black eyes reflecting the red and blue lights, still smiling that too wide smile. And behind him, rising from the desert sand like a monument to madness, was a staircase. A stone staircase. Going nowhere. Chapter 2. The Desert Frequency. June 15th, 2022, 3:17 a.m. Luna County Medical Center. Laura Jensen was admitted for psychiatric evaluation. She was incoherent, rambling about children with empty eyes and shadows that moved wrong, and a staircase in the sand. The doctors assumed drugs or a psychotic break, but then they checked her car radio. When the tow truck brought Laura's vehicle to the impound lot, the mechanic noticed something odd. The radio was on, even though the car battery was dead. That should have been impossible. He called the state police. Officer Maria Gonzalez was the first to investigate. She approached the car with her body camera recording, standard procedure for evidence collection. The radio was indeed on, the display glowing faintly in the darkness of the impound lot. The frequency read 191.3 megahertz. Gonzalez frowned. She had been an amateur radio operator for 15 years. She knew the radio spectrum like the back of her hand. 191.3 megahertz didn't exist in any civilian band. That frequency fell into a dead zone, a range explicitly left empty by international telecommunications agreements to prevent interference with emergency services and military communications. No one should be broadcasting on 191.3 megahertz, and yet something was. Gonzalez leaned closer to the car, listening. At first, there was only static, thick, heavy static that seemed to pulse like breathing. Then, underneath the static, voices emerged, faint, layered, childlike. Multiple children speaking in perfect unison. "We mean no harm. We only want to go home. Please let us in. We're so cold. We've been waiting so long. Please, please, please." The voices built in intensity, overlapping, echoing, creating a sound that physically hurt to hear, like feedback screaming directly into the brain. Gonzalez stumbled backward, her hands flying to her ears. The moment she broke contact with the car, the voices stopped. The radio display flickered, then went dark. Battery finally dead. Gonzalez stood in the impound lot, her heart racing, her body covered in cold sweat. She had heard something real, something wrong. She filed a report, attached her body camera footage, requested an analysis of the audio. The FBI confiscated everything within 12 hours, but before they did, Gonzalez made a copy, a backup stored on her personal computer. She listened to it again that night in her home office, using professional audio software to isolate and enhance the voices. What she found made her quit the police force 3 days later. When she isolated the individual voice tracks, separating the chorus into its component parts, she discovered there weren't just a few children speaking. There were 47 distinct voices. 47 children, all speaking at exactly the same time, with exactly the same inflection, as if controlled by a single consciousness. And beneath all of them, barely audible even with enhancement, was another voice. Deeper, older, not human. It spoke only 5 words, repeated over and over. "We are the forgotten shadows." Gonzalez burned the backup file that night, smashed her computer's hard drive with a hammer, tried to forget. But she couldn't forget the question that haunted her. Where did 47 children go to become one voice? Chapter 3. Chapter 3. The Desert Staircase. June 18th, 2022, 2:34 p.m. 17 miles west of Route 191. Daniel Park was a geology doctoral student from Arizona State University, conducting his thesis research on sedimentary formations in the New Mexico desert. He was hiking through a particularly remote section of the Chihuahuan Desert, miles from any road or trail, when he saw something that shouldn't exist. A staircase, rising from the sand, stone construction, ancient-looking, weathered by centuries of wind and sun. 10 steps leading up to a platform about 12 feet above the desert floor. And then, nothing. No structure, no ruins, no foundation, just a staircase to nowhere. Daniel had heard stories about these, staircases in the woods and stairs to nowhere, an urban legend among hikers and park rangers. Supposedly, they appeared in national forests and remote wilderness areas, always isolated, always inexplicable. But this was different. This staircase wasn't in a forest. It was in the middle of the desert, miles from any archaeological site or historical settlement. And there was something else. At the base of the staircase, half buried in the sand, was a badge. Daniel knelt down and brushed away the sand. Sheriff's Deputy Badge. Luna County, New Mexico. Name engraved on the metal, Aaron Keller. Daniel's blood ran cold. He had seen the news reports about the missing deputy. Everyone in the region had. It was the kind of story that spread like wildfire, a cop vanishing without a trace on a lonely highway. But the deputy had disappeared on Route 191, miles from here. So how did his badge end up at this staircase? Daniel pulled out his phone to take pictures. No signal, of course, but the camera still worked. He photographed the staircase from multiple angles, documenting everything with scientific precision. Then he made a mistake. He climbed the stairs, just to the top, just to see what was up there, if there were any clues about the structure's purpose or origin. The stone steps were solid under his boots, real, physical, not a hallucination or mirage. He reached the top platform and looked around. Nothing, just desert stretching to the horizon in all directions. But then he looked down at the shadow cast by the staircase, and he realized something was wrong. The sun was almost directly overhead, just past its zenith. The shadow should have been short, compact, pointing roughly north. Instead, the shadow was enormous. It stretched at least 50 feet across the sand, and it was shaped wrong, not like a staircase shadow at all, but like the outline of a man. A very tall man, with arms too long and a head that seemed to fold in on itself. Daniel's scientific mind tried to rationalize it. Angle of the sun, optical illusion, heat shimmer. But then the shadow moved. Not because the sun was stationary. The shadow moved independently, sliding across the sand like oil, its edges rippling and distorting. Daniel backed up, nearly tripping on the edge of the platform. That's when he heard the voice behind him, a child's voice. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Daniel spun around. A boy stood at the bottom of the staircase, maybe 8 years old, wearing clothes that looked decades out of date, a faded shirt and worn jeans, barefoot, and his eyes, completely black. Who are you?" Daniel stammered. The boy smiled. "I'm what happens when people look too closely." He raised his arm and pointed, not at Daniel, but at the shadow beneath the staircase. "He's been waiting for you, Mr. Park. He's been waiting for anyone who can see." "See what?" The boy's smile widened. "The door between shadows and flesh, the place where the forgotten go." The shadow moved again, rising from the ground like smoke, becoming three-dimensional, taking shape. A figure, impossibly tall, impossibly thin. Its body seemed to be made of darkness itself, as if it were a hole cut out of reality. Daniel ran. He leaped from the platform, stumbling in the sand, scrambling to his feet, running blindly through the desert. Behind him, he heard the boy's voice, calm and distant. "You can't outrun your own shadow, Mr. Park." Daniel ran for 3 miles before his legs gave out. He collapsed in the sand, gasping for breath, his throat burning, his heart hammering. He looked back the way he had come. No staircase visible, no boy, no impossible shadow figure, just empty desert. He checked his phone, still no signal. But when he opened his photo gallery to look at the pictures he had taken of the staircase, they were all corrupted. Every single image was filled with digital artifacts, pixelated blocks of color, geometric distortions, glitches that made the photos unreadable. Except for one detail visible in every corrupted image. In the background, barely visible through the digital noise, was a figure, a tall, dark figure, standing on the top step of the staircase, looking directly at the camera. Daniel deleted every photo, turned off his phone, and started walking east toward the highway, refusing to look at his own shadow stretching across the sand behind him. Chapter 4. The Return. June 21st, 2022, 11:02 p.m. Luna County Medical Center. Laura Jensen had been in the psychiatric ward for 6 days. She had been mostly non-responsive, staring at walls, refusing food, occasionally muttering about children in the static and shadows that don't match. The doctors were considering a transfer to a long-term facility. Then, at 11:02 p.m., Laura sat up in bed and spoke clearly for the first time since her admission. "The staircase isn't a door, it's a key." Dr. Rebecca Marsh, the night shift psychiatrist, was making her rounds when Laura spoke. She approached the bed cautiously. "Laura, can you hear me?" Laura's eyes were open, but unfocused. She stared past Dr. Marsh at something in the corner of the room that wasn't there. "They don't belong here," Laura continued, her voice flat and emotionless. "They were cast out. Their shadows were severed from their bodies. Now they exist in the spaces between, in the static, in the frequencies no one listens to, in the corners of your vision where reality blurs." "Who, Laura? Who are they?" "The children. But they're not really children. Not anymore. They wear children like we wear clothes. Comfortable, familiar, disarming. Dr. Marsh felt a chill run down her spine. What do they want? Laura finally focused on Dr. Marsh, her eyes clearing for a moment. They want their shadows back. They need our shadows. That's why they asked to come in. Because once you invite them into your space, your shadow becomes theirs. And once they have your shadow, they can follow you anywhere. They can become you. Laura, this isn't real. You experienced a trauma. The staircase is a key, Laura interrupted. It unlocks the door between their world and ours. Someone built it a long time ago, a crossing point. But the door works both ways. If we don't close it, more of them will come through, and eventually there won't be enough shadows left. Before Dr. Marsh could respond, all the lights in the psychiatric ward flickered and died. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in dim red. Dr. Marsh reached for the call button to alert security. That's when she saw it. In the corner of Laura's room, visible now in the red emergency lighting, was a shadow. A human-shaped shadow cast by no visible source. It stood perfectly still, watching them. Dr. Marsh's rational mind tried to explain it away. Trick of the light, optical illusion, sleep deprivation. But then the shadow moved. It slid across the wall, independent of any light source, flowing like liquid. Dr. Marsh backed toward the door, her medical training forgotten, primitive survival instinct taking over. Laura sat up in bed, her eyes now fixed on the shadow. You can't run from it, Doctor. It's been following you since you listened to the recording, since you heard their voices. You invited them in just by listening. That's all it takes. What recording? I never. You heard about the car radio. You were curious. You asked Officer Gonzalez to send you a copy before the FBI took it. You listened to it 3 days ago. Don't you remember? Dr. Marsh's face went pale. She had listened to it, in her office, alone, late at night. She had been so fascinated by the psychological implications, by the mass auditory hallucination hypothesis she was developing for a research paper. And while she listened, she had felt, watched, but she had dismissed it as paranoia. The shadow moved closer, climbing up the wall now, spreading across the ceiling. Laura spoke again, her voice now overlaid with others. Children's voices, speaking in unison. We mean you no harm, Dr. Marsh. We only want to go home. Please let us in. We're so cold. We've been waiting so long. Dr. Marsh ran. She burst into the hallway, slamming the door behind her. The security cameras in the psychiatric ward captured everything that happened next. At 11:08 p.m., Laura Jensen stood up from her bed. She moved with strange, jerky motions, like stop-motion animation, her body teleporting forward in small increments rather than walking normally. She opened her room door. It should have been locked, but it swung open effortlessly. And behind her, stepping out of the shadows, was a child, a boy with black eyes and a too-wide smile. But here's what made the security footage truly disturbing. As the child walked, Laura's shadow slid across the floor behind it. Not her body, just her shadow, as if her shadow had detached from her and was following the child of its own accord. Laura and the child walked down the hallway together, past empty nurses' stations, past locked doors that opened by themselves, past security cameras that flickered and glitched as they passed. They reached the emergency exit at the end of the hall. The door should have triggered an alarm. It didn't. They walked outside into the night and vanished. When the night security guard checked the footage the next morning, he noticed something impossible. In the final frame, just before Laura and the child disappeared from view, you could see something in the background. In the parking lot, rising from the concrete like a ghostly apparition, a stone staircase, leading nowhere. Chapter 5. The Last Broadcast. September 3rd, 2022, 3:13 a.m. Desert Radio Observatory, New Mexico. Thomas Chen was a radio astronomer who spent his nights listening to the cosmos. His job was to monitor signals from deep space, searching for patterns, anomalies, anything that might indicate intelligent life beyond Earth. He was used to strange sounds, radio pulsars that ticked like cosmic clocks, the hiss of the cosmic microwave background, the occasional satellite interference. But on September 3rd at exactly 3:13 a.m., he detected something that made no sense, a signal from Earth, strong, local, broadcasting on 191.3 megahertz. That frequency shouldn't exist. It was a dead zone, internationally agreed upon as unused spectrum to prevent interference. And yet, something was broadcasting. Thomas adjusted his equipment, trying to isolate the signal. The audio came through his speakers, crystal clear, static. Then, cutting through the static, a woman's voice, terrified, desperate, barely holding together. "If you're hearing this, please, we couldn't close it. We tried. We found the staircase. We thought we could seal the door. But we were wrong. So wrong." Thomas's hands hovered over the controls, frozen. The woman continued, "They're not children. They never were. They're something older, something that existed before humans had shadows, before light created darkness. They lived in the spaces between, in the frequencies we don't use, in the corners we don't look at, in the moments between heartbeats." Background noise emerged behind her voice. Children whispering, dozens of them, speaking in unison. "We mean no harm. We only want to go home." The woman's voice cracked. "Don't believe them. They don't want to go home. They want to make this world their home, and they need our shadows to do it. Every person who hears this broadcast, every person who sees them, every person who acknowledges their existence, you give them power. You give them a doorway." The children's voices grew louder, angrier. "Let us in! Let us in! Let us in!" The woman was crying now. "If you're hearing this, check your shadow. Look at it carefully. Is it behaving right? Is it moving the way it should? Because if it's not, if there's a delay, if it moves independently, if it's darker than it should be, then they're already inside. They're already wearing you." Thomas involuntarily looked down at his own shadow, cast by the dim light of his computer monitors. It looked normal. Perfectly normal. Except, was it? Did his shadow move a fraction of a second too slow when he shifted in his chair? No. Impossible. Trick of the light. The broadcast continued. Deputy Keller tried to warn people. He's been broadcasting for 3 years now, trapped in their frequency. He's one of them now, but a part of him still remembers, still tries to warn people, but they use his voice as bait. They use all our voices. A new voice joined the broadcast. A man's voice, layered and distorted. "This is Deputy Aaron Keller, badge number 2847. If anyone can hear me, stay away from Route 91. Stay away from the staircase. Don't answer if they call to you. Don't listen if they speak. And whatever you do, don't let them see your shadow." The signal began to break up, static consuming the transmission. But before it cut out completely, the woman spoke one last time. "We're still here, all of us who vanished. We're trapped in the spaces between, in the shadow realm. And we can see you, all of you, every person listening. We can see your shadows, and now, so can they." Then came a sound that Thomas would never forget, a child's voice, innocent, sweet, terrifying. "Hello, Thomas Chen. Your shadow is very nice. May we borrow it?" Thomas stumbled backward, knocking over his chair. How did it know his name? How could a radio signal know his name? He looked at his computer screen. His identification wasn't visible anywhere in the broadcast. There was no way for the signal to identify him. Unless the broadcast wasn't just audio, unless it was bidirectional, unless whatever was transmitting could also receive, could also see. Thomas shut down his equipment, his hands shaking violently. He spent the rest of the night with all the lights on, afraid to look at his own shadow, convinced that if he did, he would see something wrong with it, something watching him from within the darkness. He never reported the broadcast, never told anyone what he heard, because he knew, with absolute certainty, that the moment he spoke about it, the moment he acknowledged it publicly, he would become part of it. Part of the broadcast that never ends. Part of the signal that spreads like a virus, carried by words and awareness and the simple act of looking at your own shadow. Chapter 6. The pattern emerges. September 15th, 2022. FBI Field Office, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Special Agent Marcus Webb had been investigating disappearances along Route 191 for 8 months. Official count: 14 people missing since 2019. Unofficial count: probably double that. Most weren't reported because they were transients, undocumented immigrants, people society had already lost track of. But the cases he did have showed a disturbing pattern. All of them disappeared at night. All of them were alone. All of them were last seen near mile marker 191. And in 7 cases, witnesses reported seeing a child on the road just before the disappearance. But here's what really bothered Agent Webb. The witnesses described the same child, same age, same clothing, same appearance, over a span of 3 years. The child never aged. Webb had compiled a file thick enough to break a desk. Witness statements, dashcam footage, radio transcripts, geological surveys of the area. Everything pointed to something happening near that specific location. Something impossible to explain through conventional investigation. His superiors at the FBI had ordered him to close the case. National security, they said, above his clearance level. But Webb couldn't let it go, because 3 days ago, his daughter Emily had called him from college. She was doing a cross-country road trip with friends, and their route took them right through New Mexico on Route 191. Webb had begged her to take a different route, offered to pay for her gas, her hotels, anything to keep her away from that road. Emily had laughed it off. "Dad, you're being paranoid. We'll be fine." She was supposed to call him when they reached Phoenix. That was 2 days ago. He hadn't heard from her since. Her cell phone went straight to voicemail. Her friends' phones were the same, their last known location according to cell tower data, mile marker 191. Now Webb sat in his office at 2:47 a.m., unable to sleep, staring at maps and files and trying to find something he had missed. His desk phone rang. He grabbed it on the first ring. "Webb?" Static. "Hello, Emily? Emily?" A voice came through. Female, young, distorted by layers of interference. "Daddy?" Webb's heart stopped. "Emily? Where are you? Are you okay?" I don't know where I am. It's dark. There are other people here. They're all watching something. A staircase. Daddy, there's a staircase in the middle of nowhere, and it's glowing, and there are children climbing up and down it, but they're not really children. Their eyes are wrong, and they keep asking us to follow them, to come see what's at the top, and I want to say no, but I can't move my legs. I can't move. Daddy, help me. Please help me. Emily, listen to me. Get away from there. Run, get in your car and drive. I'm coming to get you. But Emily's voice changed, became flat, emotionless. "It's too late, Daddy. I looked at my shadow, and it wasn't mine anymore." The call ended. Webb's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. He grabbed his keys, his gun, his badge. He didn't request backup, didn't file a report, didn't tell anyone where he was going. He just drove, straight to Route 191. Straight to mile marker 191, where, according to satellite data, there should have been nothing but empty desert. But Webb knew better now. He knew there was a staircase there, a doorway, and his daughter was on the other side. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. September 15th, 2022. 11:37 p.m., mile marker 191. Agent Webb's SUV screeched to a halt on the shoulder of Route 191. He grabbed his flashlight and radio, his service weapon already drawn. The desert stretched out before him, illuminated only by his headlights and the pale glow of the moon. And there, about 100 yards from the road, he saw it, the staircase. It rose from the sand like a monument, its stone surface smooth and ancient. At the top platform, something glowed with a faint, sickly light, not bright enough to illuminate the surroundings, but bright enough to be seen from a distance. And surrounding the staircase were figures, dozens of them, people, standing perfectly still, watching the stairs. Webb ran toward them, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "FBI! Everyone step away from the structure. This is a crime scene!" None of the figures moved. As Webb got closer, his flashlight revealed their faces. Young people, teenagers and college-aged kids. Their eyes were open but unfocused, staring at the staircase with expressions of blank wonder. Among them, Webb saw his daughter. "Emily!" He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. "Emily, can you hear me? It's Dad! We're leaving!" Emily's eyes didn't focus on him. She stared past him at the staircase. "I have to see what's at the top," she whispered. "They're calling me. Can't you hear them?" "No one's calling you. We're leaving now!" Webb tried to pull her toward his car, but she didn't move. Her feet were rooted to the ground as if she weighed 1,000 pounds. And then Webb heard it. Children's voices, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Agent Marcus Webb, badge number 6471. We've been waiting for you. Webb spun around, his gun raised. Standing at the base of the staircase was a child, boy, maybe 9 years old, black eyes, too wide smile. Where is she? Webb demanded. What did you do to my daughter? The child tilted his head. We did nothing. She came willingly. They all did. They heard the broadcast. They became aware of us, and awareness is invitation. Let them go. We can't. They don't belong to themselves anymore. They belong to the space between. Their shadows have already crossed over. Webb looked down at Emily's shadow, cast by his flashlight. It was moving, not in response to her body, independently sliding across the sand like oil, reaching toward the staircase. No, Webb whispered. No, no, no. The child's smile widened. Would you like to see where the shadows go, Agent Webb? Would you like to understand? All you have to do is climb the stairs, just 13 steps. That's all. I'm not going anywhere with you. But your daughter is already climbing. Can't you see? Webb looked at Emily. Her body hadn't moved, but her shadow had detached completely, sliding across the sand, flowing up the stone steps like water running in reverse. Emily! He reached for her again, but something stopped him. His own shadow. It stretched across the sand, cast by the headlights of his SUV behind him. But it was moving wrong. Too slow, delayed by a fraction of a second, as if the connection between his body and his shadow had been severed. You've been listening to the broadcast too, haven't you, Agent? The child's voice was almost sympathetic. You've read the transcripts. You've heard the recordings. You've thought about us. And thinking is the same as looking. Looking is the same as seeing. And seeing is the same as inviting. Webb raised his gun, aimed it at the child. Bullets won't work on shadows, the child said. Maybe not, but they might work on whatever you really are. Webb fired. The bullet passed through the child as if he were made of smoke. The child laughed, a sound like broken glass scraping across concrete. We don't have bodies anymore, Agent Webb. We are what's left when bodies forget their shadows. We are the negative space, the absence, the void that watches from every dark corner. More children appeared, materializing from the darkness. Dozens of them, all with black eyes, all smiling. They spoke in unison. Your daughter will join us soon. Would you like to join her? Or would you prefer to spend the rest of your life wondering where she went? Wondering if she's still aware? Still screaming inside the shadow that wears her face? Webb looked at Emily. Tears streamed down his face. I'm sorry, baby, he whispered. Then he did the only thing he could think of. He ran toward the staircase. Not to climb it, but to destroy it. He pulled a small explosive device from his pocket, C4, illegal for civilians but standard FBI issue, and attached it to the base of the stone structure. The children shrieked in unison, their voices becoming high-pitched wails that hurt to hear. No, you can't! The door must remain open! Watch me, Webb growled. He pressed the detonator. The explosion lit up the desert like a miniature sun. The staircase shattered, stone fragments flying in all directions. The children screamed, their forms destabilizing, flickering like bad television reception. And then something else emerged from the ruins of the staircase. Something massive. Something made of pure shadow, rising from the ground like smoke, coalescing into a shape that hurt to look at. Too many limbs, too many angles, a geometry that bent reality itself. It spoke with a voice like thunder. You have broken the covenant. You have sealed the door. Now the shadows trapped here can never return. They are bound to your world forever. The massive shadow thing lunged toward Webb. He didn't run. He stood his ground, his gun raised, knowing it was useless but refusing to die cowering. The shadow engulfed him. Cold. Absolute cold, like being plunged into liquid nitrogen. Webb felt himself being pulled apart, his consciousness separating from his body, his thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm. And then, nothing. Epilogue. Route 191 today. December 2024, 2 years later. Route 191 is still there, still empty, still stretching through the desert under the endless New Mexico sky. The official story is that there was a terrorist incident in 2022, an improvised explosive device. No casualties. Case closed. The area around mile marker 191 was declared a federal exclusion zone, fenced off, patrolled by security contractors who don't ask questions. But travelers still report strange things. Late at night, driving through the desert, people see a child walking along the shoulder, always the same child. Always walking, never hitchhiking, never stopping. And if you slow down to help, if you roll down your window to ask if the child needs assistance, the child will look at you with eyes that are completely black and ask a single question, "Can I come in?" Smart drivers accelerate and don't look back. But some people stop. Some people invite the child into their car, and those people are never seen again. Their vehicles are found abandoned, engines running, doors open. Sometimes their phones are found, still recording. And on those recordings, late at night, if you listen very carefully, you can hear voices, children's voices, broadcasting on a frequency that shouldn't exist, 191.3 megahertz. The broadcast continues every night between 3:13 and 3:17 a.m. And if you tune in, if you listen, you'll hear them. "We mean no harm. We only want to go home. Please let us in. We're so cold. We've been waiting so long. Please, please, please." And underneath all the voices, you'll hear something else. A man's voice. Strained, desperate, still trying to warn people even though he's been part of the broadcast for years. Don't listen. Don't acknowledge them. Don't look at your shadow. If you've heard this, it's already too late. They know you now. They've seen you, and shadows never forget. Then comes the worst part. The part that made the FBI classify this case above top secret. The part that keeps investigators awake at night. In the final seconds of every broadcast, before the signal cuts out, there's one more voice. A new voice. Young, female, terrified. "Daddy? If you can hear me, I'm still here. I'm still aware. I'm trapped in my own shadow. And I can see everything you do. Every moment, every movement. I'm watching from the darkness behind you. Always behind you. Always in the corner of your eye. And someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 50 years, I'll finally learn how to come back. And when I do, I won't be me anymore. I'll be what shadows become when they forget they ever had bodies." Emily Webb's voice, still broadcasting, still warning people, still trapped in the space between light and dark. And her father, Agent Marcus Webb, was never found. But late at night on Route 191, drivers report seeing a man standing beside the road, middle-aged, wearing an FBI jacket, looking lost. And when car headlights hit him, he casts no shadow at all. He just stands there, watching the traffic pass, his eyes slowly turning black, waiting, like all the others, in the space between, final warning. This story is based on real reports compiled by shadow researchers and paranormal investigators. Route 191 exists. The disappearances are real. The broadcasts have been documented. If you're driving through New Mexico late at night and you see a child on the side of the road, do not stop. If your radio suddenly switches to 191.3 megahertz, turn it off immediately. If you see a staircase in the desert, do not approach it. And most importantly, check your shadow. Does it move the way it should? Does it follow your movements exactly? Or is there a delay, just a fraction of a second, as if something else is controlling it? Because if there is, if your shadow has been compromised, then they're already inside. And it's only a matter of time before your shadow becomes you, and you become another voice in the broadcast that never ends. The broadcast that spreads like a virus, carried by awareness itself. The broadcast that asks only one question: can we come in? The end.